Today's story is absolutely wild. It's so strange and so utterly bizarre that it's going to sound like it were ripped right out of a movie script. Pure fiction, right? Wrong. This is the unbelievable but 100% true story of Henry Ziegland. And I promise you, there is absolutely no way that you're going to be able to guess what happens in the end of this story. Are you ready? However, before we go there, I need a quick favor. If you like dark and scary stories, then you're in the right place. So hit that like button and subscribe to the channel because we are now putting out about 2 videos per week. So you don't want to miss anything. Towards the end of this story, I'm going to reveal the picture that's often associated with the story, and it's super interesting. So you don't want to miss out on that. With that, let's get into it. This story takes place in a teeny tiny town known as Honeygrove. Now, Honeygrove is a type of place where you wouldn't expect epic tragedy. A small town with a small town center, place where everyone seems to know everyone, and gossip seems to spread faster than the small trains that whiz by on the edge of town. But beneath that calm surface, some intense emotions were about to erupt in the most violent way imaginable. The story centers around a man named Henry Ziegland. By all accounts, Henry was a pretty decent guy, but he made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. And it all went south when he decided to break up with his sweetheart girlfriend. Now, Henry's girlfriend was said to be a gentle and devoted girl who saw Henry as her entire future. But when Henry decided to break it off, it wasn't just simple heartbreak. It shattered her entire world. However, the heartache was just too much for the young woman to bear. She decided to take her own life, and that's what she did. When her brother learned about the great tragedy that had happened to his sister, he too was grief-stricken. That grief quickly curdled into a furious rage, and with the revolver in his hand, he decided to set out and find the man that had wronged his sister. So, he laid in wait, hiding on Henry's property, planning an ambush. And when Henry walked by, he jumped out, aiming to kill. He fired a shot. But the bullet, instead of slamming into Henry, it only grazed his face, and it lodged itself deep within the trunk of a massive oak tree. Seeing his mission failed, the brother, overcome with sorrow and rage, and possibly facing criminal charges, decided right then and there to turn the gun on himself and end his own life. And there that bullet sat, lodged in that oak tree on Henry's property, silent, almost forgotten, but a true reminder to Henry of his close brush with death. Henry was shaken by the ordeal, but he felt lucky to have escaped with his life. Or did he? Over the next 20 years, that massive oak tree stood on Henry's property as a grim reminder of that tragic day. But Henry, he didn't have the heart to cut it down. But in 1913, Henry finally had enough, and he decided to cut down the massive oak tree. But the tree, being so massive, was simply too big to cut down with an axe. Can you guess what happened? In a bizarre twist, Henry decided to blow up the tree using dynamite, hoping to finally obliterate the last remaining piece of that horrible nightmare. However, instead of hiring a professional, Henry decided to blow up the tree himself because how hard can it be? He bought the explosives and placed them at the base of the tree. Henry's hands were trembling as he lit the match and moved it towards the end of the fuse. The fuse hissed as it caught fire, burning towards the explosives. Henry stepped back and retreated a safe distance. The seconds ticked by like hours, and then boom! The deafening explosion ripped through the air, and the oak tree splintered into a million pieces. But as the debris rained down, a single rusty projectile shot out like a missile, hitting Henry directly in the head and killing him instantly. Later, it would be revealed that that projectile that killed Henry was the same bullet that had become lodged in the tree 20 years prior from his dead girlfriend's brother. Some say it was coincidence. Some say it was fate. But either way, Henry could not escape the past. And as promised before, I told you that I would show you the picture that's often associated with this story. So here it is. For over a century, this was considered the ultimate open and shut case of cosmic retribution. It shows two men standing by the infamous tree, pointing directly at the scar where the patient bullet supposedly waited for 20 years. To the casual viewer, it's the smoking gun. But because this case is so unbelievable, some skeptics have tried to claim it's a total hoax. So, let's play devil's advocate for a second and break it all down. If you look closer at what these men are wearing, critics argue the entire story begins to collapse. They point out that the style of the hats and the cut of the heavy overcoats looks much more like the 1930s than 1905. They claim that if you dig into the local Texas consensus data from Fannin County, you will not find a single record of Henry Ziegland. To the skeptics, Henry Ziegland never existed. They want you to believe the story was just a 120-year-old newspaper joke designed to fill empty print space and sell newspapers, and it was kept alive for a century by a random archival photo, and our own deep human obsession with poetic justice. They argue that the bullet never waited 20 years and the myth is just a comfortable lie. But ask yourself this. If a wealthy, powerful family wanted to scrub a horrific, embarrassing tragedy from the local records, wouldn't they? If you had the money and the influence in rural Texas back then to bury a dark family shame, wouldn't you ensure the paper stopped asking questions? Skeptics want a clean paper trail, but history isn't always clean. And that is the stranger than fiction, unbelievable, but 100% true story of Henry Ziegland. And I told you, there is absolutely no way that you were going to be able to guess the end of the story. So, was I right? Sometimes the past stays buried. And sometimes it comes back with a vengeance. So, what's the moral of the story? You decide. If you enjoyed the story, then I want you to do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more. We got a lot of good stories coming out and we're trying to put out 2 stories per week. If you have a suggestion of a story that you want me to cover, then drop it in the comments and I'll be sure to reply. With that, I will catch you on the flip side. Peace.